I saw my stepson playing alone and decided to help. What happened next shocked me. True infidelity story. From the very beginning, I understood that the art of merging families would present its own set of trials. For 2 years, my husband Robert and I have shared the bonds of marriage. Though our relationship remains robust, I find myself grappling with the complexities of our evolving family life. Robert had a son named Jake, a 17-year-old teenager who had been living with us since my arrival. Even though my affection for Robert ran deep, an undeniable distance lingered between Jake and me. He was reserved, introspective, and appeared to prefer solitude more than I found comfortable. Initially, I believed that the discomfort would fade as time passed. Ultimately, I was not his mother, and we were still navigating our path. Yet, as the months unfolded, the chasm of emotional disconnection between us deepened. Robert frequently remarked on Jake's growing distance, yet it appeared that no matter my efforts, nothing seemed to make a difference. I made attempts to spark conversations, providing counsel when I sensed it was warranted, and even proposing enjoyable activities we could share, yet Jake consistently appeared indifferent or dismissive. This experience filled me with frustration, leaving me uncertain about how to close the divide. I found myself torn between the desire to avoid forcing a connection with him and the reluctance to remain in this state of estrangement. A thought began to take root in my mind. What was it about me, or perhaps the manner in which I engaged with Jake, that led him to close himself off from me? Our coexistence under the same roof, coupled with our sparse conversations, only intensified the feeling of solitude that enveloped us. Each day unfolded as if I were treading delicately on fragile eggshells in his presence, perpetually uncertain of how to improve the situation. As the days slipped by, I clung to the hope that everything would eventually align, yet that hope remained unfulfilled. I came to the understanding that in my efforts to honor his boundaries, I might have been sidestepping the opportunity to fully grasp the complexities of his emotional battles. My thoughts turned increasingly to Jake, pondering the emotions he must have been experiencing throughout this entire period. In the end, he remained in the throes of mourning for his mother, and I had failed to genuinely recognize the profound impact that must have had on him. It was simple for me to overlook that he was more than just a teenager navigating the usual trials of adolescence. He was a young man navigating the complexities of a world that had transformed profoundly around him. It became evident that the emotional barrier separating us was not merely a matter of discomfort. It stemmed from a profound absence of connection. I had become overly fixated on the mechanics of making things function, neglecting to confront the deeper emotional intricacies at play. I had formed certain beliefs about Jake and his actions, convinced that by maintaining my distance, he would ultimately reveal his true self. Yet, I had never paused to consider that perhaps I was the one who needed to take the initiative, to strive for a deeper understanding of what he was truly experiencing. I was more than merely his stepmother. To truly impact his life, I had to invest the time to recognize him as more than merely Robert's son. I sought to embody a presence that would listen, comprehend, and extend compassion freely, without any anticipation of reciprocation. In the midst of my contemplation, a significant realization dawned upon me. I had never allowed myself the opportunity to forge an emotional bond with Jake. Rather than dwelling on what he failed to provide, I should redirect my attention to the value I could bring to him. It became evident that to dissolve the emotional tension lingering between us, I had to engage him with patience, empathy, and an open heart ready to listen. The anticipation had become unbearable. I could no longer wait for him to approach me. The moment had arrived to summon the resolve. It was a serene afternoon as I stepped into the house, returning early from my errands. To my surprise, Jake was home. Robert had claimed to be out with friends, yet there he sat on the couch, his head buried in his hands. I hesitated, caught in a moment of uncertainty about how to engage with him. Jake was the kind of person who never sought assistance. To be truthful, I was completely unaware of the struggles he faced. Yet, witnessing him in this state, so exposed, stirred within me a compelling urge to act rather than simply pass him by. I took my seat opposite him, allowing silence to linger in the air for a moment. Uncertainty clouded my mind regarding which words might hold power, yet I understood that embracing silence was the essential beginning. He gazed up at me, a flicker of uncertainty dancing in his eyes. His eyes fell swiftly, and a frustrated sigh escaped him, as though he wished to remain unseen in this moment. Yet, I refused to feign that all was well. Not any longer. This transcended mere awkwardness. This was an act of connection, a demonstration of my concern, even if he struggled to embrace it. "Jake, you don't have to share if you're not ready, but know that I'm here," I said gently. I observed the way his shoulders tightened, a clear sign that he might once more retreat into silence. Yet, he merely inclined his head in acknowledgement. The silence hung in the air, dense and laden with what remained unsaid, yet it held a certain comfort. We lingered in a silence that rendered words superfluous. With deliberate slowness, Jake raised his head and started to articulate his thoughts. His voice carried a softer timbre than normal, tinged with a hint of doubt. I can't quite grasp what's the matter with me. My ability to concentrate has vanished completely. It feels as though nothing holds significance. His face bore the weight of frustration as he struggled to articulate emotions that had remained hidden until this moment. Those words carried an immense weight of suffering. His words carried a weight, a palpable sense of recognition that something within him had shattered, leaving him adrift in uncertainty, unsure of how to mend the pieces. I absorbed his words, allowing them to wash over me without a single interruption. He found it challenging. I sensed it. He had always been the type to keep his emotions locked away, to face every challenge in solitude, but now he found himself breaking beneath the burden of it all. It's been a challenging time with Mom no longer here. I spoke with caution, making an effort not to imply that I understood his suffering. Yet, you need not bear this burden by yourself. I truly meant it. I wished for him to grasp that, despite not being his mother, I was nonetheless someone who genuinely cared for him. I longed to shed the guise of a mere outsider in his existence. Jake appeared to wrestle with my words, his gaze flitting about the room, as though he were searching for an exit from the dialogue. Yet, after what felt like an eternity, he turned his gaze back to me, his features now imbued with a gentler warmth. I never imagined you would be interested in hearing it, he confessed softly. I'm not sure how to discuss these matters. I understand. I responded, yet there are moments when voicing a thought can lighten its weight. I offered him a gentle, knowing smile. I stand by you, Jake, through thick and thin. A lengthy silence enveloped the room. To my astonishment, he offered a subtle yet discernible change in his demeanor. His sudden openness took me by surprise, yet, in that instant, I sensed we had achieved a significant breakthrough. Uncertainty loomed over me, yet I understood that my presence, my willingness to care during his moment of vulnerability, had shifted something profound between us. Jake remained close, breaking from his usual habit of retreating. For the first time, he allowed me a glimpse, even if it was just a sliver. That subtle gesture seemed to signal the dawn of something I had scarcely allowed myself to dream of, a genuine connection between us. In the weeks that followed, an undeniable change began to unfold between Jake and me. It did not happen right away. It may not have been a grand spectacle, yet I started to notice subtle hints of transformation. The silence that once lingered between us now felt less stifling. I became more aware of him, how he would linger in the kitchen during the mornings, how he began to greet me with a simple yet sincere, "Hey." In these fleeting instances, I came to understand that our bond, though delicate, was gradually taking shape, one fragment at a time. Uncertainty lingered regarding what had shifted for Jake, yet I sensed the tension between us beginning to dissipate. I took care to connect with him consistently, yet in a gentle manner. I merely inquired about the course of his day or whether he required assistance with anything. The intention was not to impose, but rather to convey my presence, ready to engage in conversation should he ever feel inclined to do so. I refrained from steering him into discussions. I chose to honor his boundaries, allowing him the freedom to approach me when he felt prepared. One evening, Jake and I found ourselves in the living room, the two of us alone. As Robert toiled away into the late hours, an enveloping silence blanketed the house. Jake lounged on the couch, his fingers dancing over the screen of his phone while I immersed myself in the pages of a book. The tranquility of the room had transformed, now exuding a sense of comfort rather than awkwardness. After a brief pause, Jake set his phone aside, an unusual decision for him. I cast a sidelong glance, and there he was, seemingly gazing into the void, adrift in contemplation. "You've been quieter than usual," I remarked, setting my book down on the table with a soft thud. "Is everything all right?" He took his time to reply. For a brief moment, it seemed as though he was weighing the choice of whether to utter a word. He let out a deep sigh, one that carried the weight of exhaustion, and locked his eyes with mine. "Sometimes I find myself questioning where I truly belong," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, as if the world had shifted irrevocably since Mom left us. "With you and Dad, I can't shake the feeling that I might be a hindrance or something." A wave of compassion washed over me for him. Though Jake was merely a teenager, the burden of grief and displacement he bore felt far more substantial than what most of his peers experienced. "I understand," I responded, my tone unwavering. "I can hardly fathom the challenges you faced, yet I assure you, Jake, you are not a hindrance." This is your rightful place. In this journey you are not solitary. He gazed at me, a gentle warmth flickering in his eyes. In that moment I sensed that my words had at last struck a chord. He had not anticipated my comprehension, yet I discerned a glimmer of hope within his gaze. Perhaps he wasn't as unseen as he had led himself to believe. I find myself questioning whether I've ever truly held that belief. He confessed, his demeanor almost bashful. You and Dad appear to be so content, and I find myself at a loss. I sense that I am faltering in my endeavors. I inhaled deeply, weighing my words with precision before I replied, Jake, you're not making any mistakes. At times, individuals require a period of adaptation, and I understand that circumstances have shifted. However, we are united as a family, and that signifies our commitment to navigating the challenges together. Perfection is an illusion, and it is our imperfections that lend authenticity to our existence. We have one another, and that will remain constant. A lengthy silence enveloped us, and I could observe him grappling with the weight of my words. He wasn't quite prepared to relinquish his fears entirely, yet I sensed a budding belief beginning to take root within him. Gradually, the barriers he had constructed to shield himself began to crumble, fragment by fragment. It was a gradual journey, not without its challenges, yet with every conversation, I sensed the bond between us deepening. The chasm of emotion that had once seemed insurmountable was gradually narrowing. I had no illusions that everything would be flawless. To my surprise, Jake began to share his feelings, a moment I hadn't anticipated. Yet, the mere act of our communication, however subtle, ignited a flicker of hope within me. I envisioned a future where we could cultivate a relationship strong enough to genuinely uplift one another. I had transcended the role of a mere stepmother. I was a figure of unwavering trust, a steadfast presence by his side, regardless of the circumstances. The ensuing weeks unfolded as a tapestry woven with a multitude of small yet meaningful triumphs. Jake and I didn't instantly forge an unbreakable bond, and our journey was far from seamless, yet I could feel a subtle transformation in the air. He was less aloof, and I could perceive his efforts, in his own manner, to reach out to me. It was never about elaborate displays or profound dialogues. The beauty lay in the small gestures, such as his offer to assist with my groceries or the fleeting half-smile exchanged as we brushed past one another in the hallway. These were understated indicators, yet they held truth, and they instilled in me a sense that we were progressing toward the right path. One afternoon, while tidying the kitchen, I caught sight of Jake at the dining table, his face immersed in a notebook. I discovered that he had a passion for sketching, yet he kept it to himself, never revealing it to anyone. His drawings served as one of the rare avenues through which he conveyed his innermost thoughts, a deeply personal endeavor he guarded closely. This experience illuminated the fact that I had not genuinely invested the time to inquire about his passions, to delve deeper into what truly motivated him. I chose to shatter the stillness with a laid-back approach. Greetings, Jake, I spoke with a lightness in my voice. What project has captured your attention lately? He glanced upward, taken aback, yet this time, he refrained from dismissing me. He raised the notebook, offering me a fleeting view of his artwork. The cityscape unfolded in a meticulous sketch, where sharp lines and intricate details converged, embodying the essence of a keen intellect and profound observation. That is truly remarkable, I remarked, with sincere admiration for the craftsmanship. You've got talent. Jake shrugged, his demeanor revealing a certain unfamiliarity with compliments. It may seem unremarkable, yet I noticed a glimmer of pride in his gaze, and for the first time in ages I perceived a fissure in the fortress he had constructed around his heart. Our discussion about his art lingered on, and while the tone stayed breezy, an unexpected bond began to form, one I had never experienced before. It felt as though we were partaking in something genuine, a connection that belonged solely to us, free from any expectations or burdens. That evening, following dinner, Jake approached me and inquired if I would like to view more of his sketches. It was an invitation, a seemingly modest yet significant gesture, and I moved forward without a moment's pause. For the next hour, we immersed ourselves in his sketchbooks, discussing the subjects that inspired his drawings, the destinations he dreamed of exploring, and the feelings that infused his creations. Though it lacked profound emotional depth, it still held significance. We found ourselves entwined in a moment, forging a connection through his fervent passion. In that instant, I understood that the bond we were nurturing didn't require urgency or pressure. It unfolded gradually, consistently, and was rich with little moments that held immense significance. We didn't have to have all the answers immediately. What truly counted was our shared endeavor, and that commitment in itself was sufficient. The emotional chasm that had once loomed large now appeared diminished, more within reach. The focus had shifted away from my attempts to mend the situation or earn Jake's acceptance in his world. It was a journey for us both, realizing that the path to a true connection was often fraught with challenges, yet undeniably rewarding. As the days unfolded, I realized that no matter what lay ahead, we would confront it side by side, taking each small step together.